Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, and a very, very warm, quite literally a very warm welcome to the latest episode. It's Friday, the 26th of June, 2026. I have just sat down on a plastic seat up at the field to record this podcast and broken out into a sweat just sitting down in the chair. It's that bad. Very, very humid. If you're here in the UK, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We've had an incredible 3 days of heatwave. I'm not sure how many temperature records we've broken, but I think it's quite a few. I think it's hottest June, hottest overnight temperature, all sorts of records have been broken, and it really has been very, very unpleasant. I think I was okay kind of Wednesday because that was like the first day of it, but what tends to happen, well, what does happen with these heat waves is the heat, of course, is cumulative. So it warms up the ground and then the heat just gets radiated back to us over the next couple of days. And today has just been particularly sticky. Yesterday was quite breezy, but today has just been incredibly close. Lots of little annoying biting insects around and just absolutely stifling. And the air conditioning in my car does not work, so I have to have all of the windows open, and then I can't hear myself think, and there's just hair in my face, and even though it's tied back. So it's just been a really, really unpleasant 3 days. But the plants have managed extremely well. Extremely well, actually. I'm surprised because I just water once a day in the evenings, which I'll talk about later. And I have been expecting to come up and find some things that have wilted, and God willing, nothing has wilted at all. It's been really quite extraordinary. It's almost the reverse. Like some of them are just bolting. They're just getting ahead of themselves, and they're going to flower and set seed and just have done with the whole business, and I don't blame them. So I had a question about how the chickens cope with the heat, and they actually cope remarkably well, which never ceases to surprise me because they are very, very feathery. I've got some birds that have got an awful lot of feathers, like goose, and then some slightly more leaner birds like Mo, who, you know, she still has a lot of feathers, don't get me wrong, but she's a very sort of lean looking bird, whereas goose just is enormous. And, you know, goose also has she has feathers on her feet as well. So they're very, very feathery, warm little creatures. So they've been walking around with their wings held out away from their bodies to cool them down. And there are big spaces between them on the perches at night. They really do not want to get up close to anybody. And they get fresh greens every day. So at the moment they're having beetroot tops and spinach and also watermelon. They love any type of melon, to be honest with you. But the watermelons are so big I can buy one and cut it into pieces. So every little group of hens gets a piece of watermelon, and they do absolutely love that. Oh, that's the peacock again. Turns out there is a peacock next door. Yeah, he's leaving soon, but apparently he's 30 years old, which is quite amazing. Anyway, I digress. So I have also gated off the vegetable area because in the evening when I come up, I let all the chickens out of all their little groups and they come and play on the grass for a while and dig through things and ferret about for bugs and whatnot. And so I thought I was being very clever by putting a gate on the entrance to the vegetable area. And it's not a proper gate. It's 2 pieces of wire panel that I've attached with bungee cords. So if you're not careful and you open the gates, this massive piece of sheet metal springs back at you at 200 miles an hour. And I also made the mistake of putting the raw edges on the bit that you walk through rather than against the fence panels that I've tied it to. So it's a bit of a death trap, actually, just getting in and out of the vegetable garden. And what I failed to recognize, I was so focused on this gateway area, I didn't realize that one of the fence panels that these things are actually attached to is like an extra wide mesh. So I turned up the other day and the chickens had obviously ignored the gate because they couldn't get through, but they just walked straight through the fence panel mesh. And somebody has eaten quite a lot of their spinach beet, which is a perennial. It's supposed to be in for a couple of years. So someone's decimated that, but it will recover. But anyway, they manage absolutely fine. I used to have one girl whose name escapes me now. Oh, no, Whitney, that's right, Whitney Houston. She was really clever. She had this technique. She would actually stand in her water containers to cool her feet down, which is really clever. And I hope that before she passed away, she would pass on that knowledge that she had to somebody else, but she hasn't passed it on. Nobody else picked it up. They obviously thought she was potty, but she was always the coolest girl because she used to just stand there in a whole bowl of water. Now, I have just got home from house sitting. Yes, house sitting again this week. This is the second heat wave that I have been house sitting, and it's almost like the gods don't like me anymore because the timing really could not be any worse. And all these dates were planned, last year. So it's not like I could move them around. I've committed to them, and I'm very happy to do it. I absolutely love it. So I've basically been off doing bits and pieces in the morning, and then just sat in the pool all afternoon because there is a pool up there. Which is amazing. And I have that sort of wrinkled skin when you've sat in the bath for too long and your fingertips go all wrinkly. I basically look like that because I've just spent hours and hours and hours just sat in water. It's a natural pool, so there are no chemicals whatsoever, which is amazing. And there's dragonflies and there's newts and there's all sorts of stuff going on. It's really, really incredible, but it has been astonishingly hard work. It probably doesn't sound like hard work, but even though I'm up there doing the house sitting and responsible for everything, I still have to go back to my place every day, sometimes twice a day, to do all the watering and the care of everything there. And then also be on the field 2 or 3 times a day, sorting that out. So there's an awful lot of driving around, which in an unconditioned car in this weather has not been my favourite thing to do this week. But we've got to Friday night. I'm home. Everything is fine. And I have been doing my limited amount of watering on the field and still only doing the annuals. So I have tried to stick to that rigidly, partly because I don't have very much water and also because the perennials have just been in the ground for such a long time. I know they've got their roots down and they are doing extraordinarily well. So it's really just the annual seedlings that need a bit of a boost because they just don't have their roots low enough down in the soil to be able to draw up the water that they need. But thank goodness the soil seems to be really great. So I'm very pleased about that. It's clearly capable of supporting a high volume of plants, and that is wonderful. I haven't done any weeding either, so I am keeping the weeds to keep the soil covered. They're doing a perfect job. And they're also, excuse me, they're also helping to feed the soil and the microbes in there. So I'm definitely not obsessing over, I'm just simply not doing any weeding at the moment. The sweet peas have actually gone completely mad in the last 2 days. They sort of kicked off a little bit on Wednesday. There was about half a dozen open. And now there's just absolutely masses. And the ones that are out are just absolutely beautiful. There don't seem to be quite enough King's Ransom for my liking. I bought 50 seeds and I don't know that that's reflected on the field, which seems to be a bit of a theme for me. I've got lots of Emily, which is a really, really pretty one. And then I'm waiting for Castlewellan to come out, which is a slightly paler one. But overall, they're looking absolutely stunning. I cut 55 of them this morning, took some photos, and I just kept sniffing them. I just couldn't get over how just incredible they smell. They really are just like absolutely just stunning. I'm not back to the watering. I meant to say that. I'm not watering the perennials or the dahlias at all. They are also doing really, really well, including the ones that have only just gone in recently. And I am doing the odd little sprinkle on some of the roses, but again, they've been in for a while and they are doing their own thing and they look absolutely marvelous. I mangled that one. They look absolutely marvelous. So I'm fine with how the watering is going, but I am running out. So I'm going to have to go and get some more and top up the IBCs next week. So when I was thinking about how everything had survived on the field this week, I thought I would share with you some of my tips for trying to, well, it's not so much trying to keep things cool because everything is just hot. There's no way around it. Now, you could, if I had lots of money and I had the inclination, you could just irrigate everything and spray everything down, and that does help to lower the temperature, but that is absolutely not an option for me, and I wouldn't want to be using water like that anyway. But I know some people on some plots will have no choice, they'll have to do that. So my number one thing for surviving extreme weathers like this is to keep the soil mulched with absolutely anything, to be honest. But my go-to is chipped bark. And I've been slowly bringing as much up here as I can get my hands on and putting it around certainly all the shrubs, the roses, the perennials, the dahlias, the random stuff that's just squirreled all over the place, the sweet peas, lots and lots of things. I hadn't got round to doing the annuals because they're very, very small and it would be super fiddly to do it. But now they're a bit bigger. I think I'm actually going to do that. I know I talked about it a few weeks ago, and there's all this question about how much nitrogen is locked up by the decomposition of chipped bark. But I know that I've got pretty nitrogen rich soil here, especially in the areas where all the nettles have been cleared away. So I'm not too worried about that, to be honest. And I did say I was going to give it a go, and I think I'm going to try it next week and see how I get on doing that. But even not weeding is like a huge thing, and it's not laziness. It really does help to keep the soil moist and cooler. So you've only got to go and stick your hand in a pile of weeds and like just sort of move them out the way a little bit and have a look at the soil, and it will always, I mean nearly always, be so much moister and darker in color and cooler than soil that doesn't have anything on it. And I have areas on the field obviously that I have not got around to doing any of these techniques for, and there is just soil there, and it gets baked and it gets very dry. The top layer just turns very, very dusty, and you have to dig a little bit further down to get to the good stuff, and that is pointless. So I have got some cardboard, and I'm going to be putting cardboard with some weights on top to cover up the beds that I'm slowly prepping to start doing all of the autumn sowing. But mulching would be my number one preferred option always, and I think chipped bark is a great alternative. I know lots and lots of growers use black plastic when they're growing, and they make holes in it and the plants come up through it and everything. And I'm not knocking what anybody else does, each to their own. I mean, totally each to their own. If you're growing, I guess, on a really huge scale, it seems like a fantastic option. I've never done it, and I don't want any plastic on the soil here, and that's just very much my personal preference. And I should stress, I'm not knocking anybody if they do this, but the black plastic will also heat up and make the soil warmer, and so there's that can sometimes exacerbate problems because it's just soaking up the sunlight. Now, storing, oh yeah, and the other reason why I love the mulch is that it reduces runoff. So when you water, and especially if you're watering on a dry soil and you're seeing any kind of like splashback, or the surface of the soil starts sort of moving and the water can't get taken in quickly enough and it just runs off, that is really dramatically halted if you have like a bark mulch on the surface, because it just acts differently, and it just helps to keep the water where you actually want it to go. Now, storing water, as you know, I've got IBCs up here, 3,000 litre in total, plus all the water butts and everything else. And I try and store as much water as possible and save it and use it really, really, really carefully. I've seen some reels on Instagram where people have found, they've got to the field and they've found that their mains has been cut off, or there's a broken pipe, or there's been an incident down the road. And they're suddenly in this awkward position where the water that they rely on is not available. So I would always, me personally, I'm not telling you what to do, me personally, I would always have spares, like backup water supplies. Mind you, having said that, I'm just about to run out of water, but out of the IBCs, but I have got all these other water butts that are like my backup plan, and they are going to be coming into action next week. So the water just has to be moved from where they are to where I actually need it to be. But the point is, always have a backup if you can, even if you're on the mains water, because you just never know what's going to happen. Now, shade cover, this is something that I have seen people doing. It's not something that I have done as standard on the field. If I did, I would use something like scaffolding netting from trade stores and that kind of thing, because it's inexpensive. And I do actually have some things at home that I will put a parasol over just to protect them during these, extremely hot few days, not just temperature wise, but the intensity of the sun as well. Because, the flowers just get scorched, the leaves get scorched and burnt and curl up. And there's just no need. It's not just about keeping the plants wet. It's also about the sunburn that these things get. So I'm not afraid to put up a parasol, but obviously that is not practical when you're growing on any kind of scale. But shade cover, good option if you want to reduce the damage. And now, having good soil is also like a really, really important thing to do. And I'm always trying to learn about soil. I'm listening to all these different podcasts. I've been reading the Living Soil Handbook, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it because I'm just really fascinated. And I've done quite a lot of work on the field, actually. Sometimes I don't like to, what am I trying to say? I don't like to keep saying, oh, I'm so lucky with the soil, because it's not just luck with the soil. What I've realized is the areas where the soil is really good, it's where it's been cultivated for a couple of years, because I was growing vegetables on it a couple of years ago. And obviously the chickens have been on it there have been chickens on it for a decade. So it's had kind of improvement to it. And the more I work with it, the better it seems to get. And I'm doing a no dig, so I try and disturb it as much as possible unless I'm digging up nettles or digging holes to put things in. And, trying to keep these living paths going, which actually I don't have a problem keeping them going. I have a problem stopping them dead. And I don't mean stopping them dead as in killing them. I mean just stopping them growing to like 6 foot tall. And then it's easier to walk down the flower bed than it is to walk on the living paths. That's how silly it's getting here now. But yeah, always working on the soil. And I always wonder how people who just grow in straight compost actually do it, because I find compost dries out very quickly and it's hard to keep it moist. I mean, certainly your own homegrown compost is going to be different, but shop bought compost, that stuff, one warm day and it just turns to absolute dust. It doesn't seem to have any kind of water holding capabilities whatsoever. So I'm not growing anything in straight compost. But if I had to, I would definitely try and get a loamy compost or get hold of some homemade compost, just so that it's got better water retention. And the other thing I try and do is I water in the evening. So the way that the plot is facing, we get all the evening sun, we get all the afternoon and evening sun, which is really, really amazing. And I do find that even in the height of the summer, the temperature drops quite a lot overnight. There's often a dew in the ground. And I find the evening watering just gives the water time to soak into the soil and be absorbed by the plants overnight, plus this little boost that it gets from the dew coming down and settling before the daytime sun kicks in. So everything pretty much has a bit of a break until lunchtime. And then that's when the sun really, really kicks in. So they are normally pretty reinvigorated and ready to start the afternoon by the time the sun gets round. And so that's why I like to water in the evenings. Now, I thought I would take you on a quick tour of the field, starting at the entrance gates, and just have a chat about what's flowering, what's budded up, what's working, what's not, any surprises, and what's finished or not saleable, and just give you a bit of a chat. So there'll be a very short break while I get up out of this chair, wipe my brow, and make my way over to the entrance gate. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, it's me, I'm back. Now, the first thing that greets you when you walk into the flower field is this great big row of sweet peas. And it's not actually that big, to be honest. I thought it was going to be bigger than it is this year. But it's going to be bigger next year because I just am obsessed with these guys. So I've got King's Ransom, and then Emily, and then Castlewellan at the end, which are the ones that the ducks have pinched all the tops out of. So those guys are having to kind of start again from scratch. But that's fine. We'll just have later flowers, which is quite nice. And off to the right, there's a bit of fennel. And then we've got a couple of rows of fantastic, beautiful purple echinacea, which has just got its flower heads all up. And these are such beautiful plants. They were tiny. I bought them, I think, 2 years ago from a neighbour of mine who's a fantastic grower. And he grew them from seed. And they really are spectacular plants. I cannot wait for those guys to come out. Behind them is a load of raspberries as well. Off on the left, we've got the table with some very random stragglers who have not made it into the ground yet. There's always some plastic trays of things which just sit lurking, some of which are amaranthus, which need to go in the ground, and a tray of cruspedia, which is my little yellow golf balls on sticks, and also a whole tray of foxglove seedlings. Now, I had another diplomatic incident with my other half the other day. We went to do a job a couple of days ago, and he got there half an hour before me because I got stuck in traffic. And I got out the car and he said, "Great news, I've done loads of weeding for you." Now, this is my job, my client, and he was coming to help me as a subcontractor. But he thought he would just get out and try and be helpful. So he went round this garden and weeded everything, and was very proud to show me the bucket. And inside the bucket were all of the self-seeded foxgloves, which self-seed in the gravel, and I snaffle them and bring them up to the field and grow them on. And he destroyed the whole lot. And also in the bucket were a couple of very small oak tree seedlings, which I had been saving until they got to a transplantable size. And he'd pulled them up as well. And he has this weird technique. When he pulls things up, he breaks them in half before he throws them in the bucket. So not only were these things ripped out the ground and dumped in the bucket, they'd also been broken in half. So there was a very, very minor diplomatic incident there when I just thought I would probably get about 15 years to life if I murdered him right now. I could still carry on with my business when I got out. And I thought, no, better not do that. So anyway, that was that. So I do still have quite a few foxgloves ready to go in the ground, but nowhere near as much as I thought I had. Now, off to the right, we've got heleniums and some rudbeckia. Some of these got shifted down into the bed 3, basically. They got shifted from the new perennials area, but I didn't get around to moving these guys. I thought I'd leave them put, and they are just looking absolutely stunning this year. What I just need is like 10 or 20 times the volume of what I've got. It's never, ever enough. Now, further down, I've got some bupleurum. No, I don't mean bupleurum. I mean bells of Ireland. I was given these by a fellow grower, and I have never been able to germinate them. You might remember me talking about them last year. Didn't get anywhere with them. And so I've got about 50 plants, I guess, and they are really, really pretty. Now, they don't look like the 4 or 5 foot tall things that Lisa Mason Ziegler, I've seen photos of hers in her book, and they're just like absolute beasts. These guys are really, really, really short, but they're so quirky. I'm really fascinated by them. I haven't sold any yet, but they're just sitting here doing their thing, along with some grasses, the grasses that I picked up from a fellow grower as excess stock, and they are looking really nice. They're the ones with those little fat bunny tails on the ends of them. They are lovely. Now, interplanted in between all of the rudbeckia and the heleniums are the cruspedia, and I found those geum plugs I told you that I bought in November. I found those. What I haven't found is the Veronica. I actually checked my invoice, and I bought geums, physostegia, phlox, and Veronica, and verbascum. And I found everything except the Veronica. So whether they didn't get planted out or they've just been swamped by something, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a bit weird not to have them. The self-seeded Orlaya are all finishing now. I've just left them to go to seed because I want to, well, I was going to say I was going to harvest the seed and sow them myself, but I think I'm just going to let them drop onto the ground and germinate themselves. I think the less I get involved in this, the better my results are going to be. So I'm just going to leave those guys to do what they want. Then we come to the dahlia bed, which is quite a large bed. It takes up maybe a quarter of all my growing space, so it's quite a commitment. And I've got 3 rows, and then within each row is a double staggered row. And they are looking lovely. So the task this weekend is to actually get the supports up for those. I've got my road pins, and they are going to be supported this weekend because I just know that in about 2 days they're going to be too big to handle. They're looking really, really lovely. As I say, I don't water them, don't do anything really, and I can see that I've got Well, actually, some of them are budded up already. Nobody's ready to flower, but I think this guy's probably about a week or 4 to 5 days away from flowering. So they're really tramping on. And then suddenly you'll come across one who just really hasn't got himself together and is absolutely miles behind his neighbours. But some of them, they're just like that. I've got little stuff off to the left. I've got a beautiful James Galway rose in, which is absolutely divine. And then some Ami, some more of the grasses. This is my Panicum Frosted Explosion, which is actually just opening, and the Frosted Explosion is so cute. So I'm just waiting to get a few more of those out before I can put them up for sale. And then a bed of Orlia that I sowed myself. They're all absolutely beautiful, come through the heat fine. And then 2 different lots of Clarkia. So you remember I planted the wrong lot out first. So I planted some that were younger than the ones that should have gone out by accident. So the younger ones were really, really short and very small and spindly. And then I planted the second lot, the first lot anyway, whatever. It all got a bit of a mess. And the hopeless, spindly, daft things have now put on masses of growth, and they're really, really pretty plants. They've just started flowering. And I don't think they really look anything like the packet. They're quite unusual. The leaves are almost a bit like a fuchsia, and the stem is a bit like a fuchsia. And then there's just this crazy purpley fuchsia pink flowers coming on them. They're really pretty, and there's so many flower heads on them. They look like they're going to be absolutely mental. So that is really interesting. I'll have to wait and see. I don't know whether I would grow them again. They were really easy and they all germinated. I've got masses of the things, but they've just given me weeks and weeks of worry, and I'm not sure if they're going to be tall enough for anything apart from bud vases, which I'm just, there's a time and a place for bud vases, and that's fine, but obviously the prices are much lower than you would get for longer stems. So I'm not a huge fan of them, as in, well, it's not that I'm not a huge fan of them. It's just, you just think, well, if it was a 60 centimetre plant, I'd get a lot more money than because he's a tiny one. And then towering over these beds is the Cephalaria, which is the giant scabious. And this is in this gorgeous pale lemon colour. And it is, I don't know how tall this guy is actually. Let me stand next to it and see. Okay, so 7 feet tall, and it's not staked, which is just bananas. But they are amazing. And obviously the 40% that got trimmed down by accident, they're also flowering, just obviously shorter, but very, very impressive looking plants. And then at this point on the field, this is where the sort of semi-professional look comes in, because this is where I actually had the turf cleared by Nigel, and I've created 4 beds coming down the hillside here. So bed 1 has got all my roses in. Half of bed 2 is roses, and the rest is bearded iris and peonies. Bed 3 is hydrangeas, then a load of annuals, and then most of the perennials. So Achillea the pearl, eryngiums, more Achillea, the normal one. What else is in there? Oh, another load of rudbeckia. And then bed 4 has got, it was supposed to be the foliage bed, but I didn't end up getting as much foliage as I wanted to, because it's expensive if you get a decent size stuff. So it's kind of been taken over as the annual bed. So there's tons of scabious, there's the saponaria, stocks, cornflowers, snapdragons, daucus, status, and then we start with, something else. What is that? Oh, scabious again. Went a bit mad on that. And then the start of the zinnias, and then they're just going to run and run and run, because I have got hundreds and hundreds of those guys to go in. So there's an awful lot going on, and in terms of the positioning of where I put things, I'm really glad I put the annuals right below the IBCs. It makes watering quite easy. I don't have to travel too far. I'm still doing everything with a watering can so that I can keep an eye on how much I use, and also it means I have to stand and actually stare at things so I can notice, or I'm more likely to notice things if I actually have to stand still and look at them for 30 seconds. So it all seems to be working out fine. The netting, I'm so proud of the netting and the staking. I've got two tiers of netting on the Achillea and the Eryngium and the other Achillea, the pearl, and it's working absolutely perfectly. Like everything has just gone perfectly straight up, which if you'd seen the mess I got into last year and the time I wasted with bamboo canes, which I couldn't get into the soil because it was too hard, and string, and it was absolutely ridiculous. So road pins at the ends of the beds and halfway along the beds, and then P&B netting in. Yes, it's plastic, but it's not touching the ground, and it's going to be recycled and used for a number of years. And the difference, honestly, I wouldn't have, if you told me, I would never have thought it would ever look this good. And I'm so proud of it. I really am, just absolutely blown away by how well it's working. So the only thing that hasn't quite worked out, the hydrangeas have been really odd this year. And the traffic's really bad tonight. All the boy racers are out. The hydrangea stems have hardly put any growth on, and then they flowered. So the useful stem is about 30 centimetres, which is, now back to the bud vases again. That's what they'll be going off for, and they'll look stunning in that. But I'm just really surprised because I had really long stems from the plants last year, and I pruned them the same way that I always prune them. So I don't quite understand what's happened with those guys, but there you are. They're still going to go off to an event, and they'll have a fantastic day, but they're just not at all what I was expecting this year. And the roses are looking amazing. They have really flowered their socks off in a way that I didn't really think the roses were going to get going this year. And there was a point in the year where I'd kind of just not written them off, but I just thought, right, forget about roses. They're not going to do anything. Just let them spend the year relaxing and getting their roots down. And then as soon as I sort of forgot about them, they all just flowered their socks off, and they're quite extraordinary. But the sun has given them a bit of a clobbering. Some have done better than others, so I'm making some notes on who's doing well and who seems to be able to cope with the heat. Chandos Beauty is just absolutely stunning, but there's one next to it which is a kind of a pale cream floribunda, which is just extraordinary, and the flowers just stay on a really, really long time. I've got some roses at home that you just look at them and all the petals fall off, and these guys are just amazing. I'm so proud of them. I really am. So that's all fine. And the rugosas have been flowering, but they are blink and you miss it fast. But they're very pretty when they do flower. And the living paths, I'm so proud of them. I mean, they're just amazing. I've got white clover everywhere. It looks really pretty. And then there's this really crazy plant called Reseda lutea or Reseda something anyway. And it is really, really amazing. It's about, 2.5 foot, 3 foot tall. And it's everywhere, and it's absolutely stunning. I love it. I'm going to make an arrangement up myself and use it. I'm trying to tempt Jo, my wedding and event florist, to have some, and she's not having any of it. I think it's not quite right for what she's had so far, but I think in a bouquet it would look absolutely drop dead gorgeous. So I'm going to cut some of those and just experiment myself. And not that I know what I'm doing, but I'm going to have a bit of a go. So that is a quick tour of the field, and I know you can't see it, but I hope you can imagine it in your mind with me talking about it. I was racking my brains to think about what to do for plant profile of the week, and I thought, you know what, it's just too hot. It's too hot. So I hope you'll forgive me that there is no plant profile of the week, but I will put one into next week's episode. So I hope you've survived the week. And I hope you have a great weekend. Temperatures are dropping over the weekend, and then they'll be about 10 degrees lower next week in the UK, which is fantastic. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and have lots of fun, and that you'll come back and join me for the next episode, because you're always, always very welcome. All the best.